All right, we're going to get this meeting started. If I can find my glasses. I'd like to announce that a quorum is present. The meeting is duly called, and notice of the meeting has been posted in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act. The time is 6:01 p.m. We ask that all of those in attendance conduct themselves respectfully at all times during this meeting. Any outbursts or disruptive behaviors may result in your removal from this evening's board work session. The following board members are in attendance: Tracy Miller, Allison Lasan, Catherine Sells, Dr. Buddy Bonner, Angie Cox, Christy Hassett, Jenny Prosnick. I've asked Mrs. Cox if she would pray.
Please bow your heads with me. Dear Heavenly Father, we are so blessed and thankful for so many things. We just ask for your prayers as we head into the end of the school year. Please surround us with your prayers and your love, and help give us guidance and assurance, and just be with us and be with our kids and our teachers, our leadership team, and help us make good decisions that are best for the outlook and the outcome for our kids. In your name we pray. Amen.
All right, I'd be happy to go over our vision statement and mission statement for this evening. Of course, all of our students enjoy thriving, productive lives in a future they create. And our mission statement: students, staff, and community design and implement a learning organization that provides engaging, innovative experiences every day. And I'm appreciative to the staff who are here tonight. And Mr. Colbeck's going to take our 4 cornerstone statement.
Sorry, just had it up. All right, here we go. So tonight you're going to hear a lot of information regarding the 2017 bond program, so I thought it was appropriate to share our cornerstone around resource stewardship. For tonight, our resource stewardship I statement is: I have a mind for practicing efficient use of resources, and specifically utilize resources to the greatest student and staff impact. And I think the presentations that you're going to hear tonight, we're all, in the role of being a steward leader. And I think we want to make sure the decisions that we make impact the students and the staff to get, so that they have the opportunity to get the most benefit of things that we're putting into play. So our I statement for tonight is around resource stewardship.
Thank you, Brian. Appreciate that. Persons desiring here to address the Board of Trustees must fill out a speaker's card. In accordance with district board policy, only speaker cards addressing items that on this evening's agenda will be acknowledged. No presentation shall exceed 3 minutes. The board cannot deliberate on any subject that is not included on the agenda. Each speaker will receive a written copy follow-up from the district in the next 3 business days. The board and district administration values the feedback shared during this time of the meeting, and we are grateful for the continued partnership between LISD and the families and communications we serve. There are no speakers this evening, so discussion items, accountability, and evaluation. Dr. Rapp.
All right, thank you. I'm going to ask Dr. Fitzhugh and Dr. Baxter, and I can't see behind the pole, Ms. Adams, to come on up and join us. Of course, Dr. Fitzhugh will speak to this, but this is part of our established program evaluation schedule of items that are coming before you this evening. I appreciate them being here to share what the data and information we have regarding the collegiate program evaluation. I'll turn it over to Dr. Fitzhugh.
Okay, I think, was that the right button? All right, good evening. We sent you this presentation in advance, so we are going to go through pretty briefly tonight. Please feel free to, at the end, ask any questions you might have.
All right, good evening. The first slide here, we have the purpose of the LISD Collegiate Academy at the Colony High School. It was the first academy in LISD, and it provides students an opportunity to begin dual credit as a freshman in high school, and then by the time they are seniors to earn enough dual credit so that they can receive an associate's degree from Collin College as well as a high school diploma at the same time. And this is ideal for creating that partnership and that pathway from high school to college. And there are also some other benefits on that slide as well.
This video was in your board packet, so we are not going to show it this evening, but it is just an overview of the Collegiate Academy. So just a brief history of the Collegiate Academy. In 1516, we had an Academies Committee comprised of stakeholders in LISD and looked at a bunch of different options for academies in LISD, and Collegiate Academy was the first one that we decided to move forward with. We opened applications in the spring of 2017. The applications were open to current Colony 9th graders and rising 9th graders, so 8th graders that were feeding into the Colony High School. We did initiate 2 associates pathways for them to earn, and we did host parent nights, and we have continued to go to each of the high schools as well as faculty meetings to make sure that we are putting the information out there for everyone.
In terms of staffing for Collegiate Academy, we currently have 2 Collegiate Academy counselors that are devoted to the program entirely. We also have a Collegiate Academy liaison that we pay through Title I funds, and she's our coordinator in many aspects of the program. We also have 2 administrators. They are not strictly devoted to collegiate. They have other duties, but they also work with our Collegiate Academy students. And then also, Collin College provides us a college and career counselor, and that person is able to work with not just collegiate students, but all TCHS students. The cohort model is really what we consider our key to success in Collegiate Academy. And it provides our students with an opportunity to work together. They build camaraderie and teamwork. They experience opportunities such as guest speakers and field trips. And really it just gives that sense of identity that a group is working together until they graduate, and it builds that sense of teamwork and togetherness and just that attitude that we can do this. We're in it together and we can do this.
So one of the pieces since the start, we now have 5 cohorts of students that have been involved with Collegiate Academy. We're accepting applications for our 6th cohort. We have had one of those cohorts, which represents 2 classes, have graduated, so that's what we will have data on tonight.
When we're looking at who is a good candidate for Collegiate Academy, we start with just commitment to dual credit programming, some academic capacity and desire. We are recruiting students in 8th grade during the fall, and so that is an important component. So we do look at their grades through middle school. We're looking at their STAR scores. We're also looking at any other academic indicators. In alignment with our transfer policy of LISD, we also look at attendance and discipline. As you know, we have the opportunity to do a little bit of a holistic review, so it is a committee that is looking at each student individually, so it's not just numbers. We want to look at, we also give our campuses a chance to advocate for students when maybe their grades, attendance, and discipline are not what we're looking for on paper. As we have moved forward through the process, the TSIA, which is the Texas Success Initiative Assessment, we're on the 2.0 version since last January, has become the final indicator, as that is a requirement of the coordinating board to access dual credit after their initial class, which is their Psych 1300. 100. We have gotten to, once they, and Dr. Baxter in just a minute is going to talk about what the application process looks like, but that TSIA test has become the final indicator, as it is something that is necessary for students to move forward with their dual credit starting in the fall of their freshman year.
In terms of processes and timelines, one of our core beliefs at TCHS is just the importance of developing solid processes in all we do and then carrying those out to success, and Collegiate Academy is no exception. On this slide, we have our process every year when we welcome a new cohort into the program. So in November and in December, we open up applications, we review those applications, and we let them know of their initial eligibility to continue and to be TSI tested. In January every year, we offer the TSI test to the students, and then in February, we let them know of their final eligibility. Also at the bottom of the slide there are also other processes in terms of how we welcome a cohort, such as our Collegiate Academy Welcome Nights, which many of you have had the opportunity to attend, and other activities as well.
So one of the pieces of data that we looked at are the number of applicants that we have applied, the number of students that were invited to participate in the TSI testing, and then students who met minimum eligibility, and then those who actually attended that were accepted into the Colony High School. Just a note, one of the things when we launched in 2020, well, we launched before, but with that class of 2020, 2021, lots of 20s there, our process was still being refined, so we didn't have this data in that format for that year, but you can kind of see the counts of how the students are tracking. In addition to that, we looked at who is being served, and so far 546 students have participated. 29.7% of those students are economically disadvantaged, and then you can see the ethnicity and race data. This data is very much so in line with our district demographic data over time. The white student group is a little bit elevated. The Asian student group is a little bit lower than what it is in terms of district population, but other than that, they're within 1 to 2 percentage points of what our district is. Additionally, we looked at those students who actually attended and whether or not they remained in the program through graduation. And so what you can kind of see there through the years is that the kids who were zoned for the Colony High School, those first two groups, the class of 20 and 2021, they remained. Then when you get to the other, we start to see some students who move out of district or who left and went back to their home campus. And so those are the numbers in terms of retention in the program. And Mr. Baxter.
At the bottom of the slide, in terms of any reason why a student would withdraw from the program, the first two bullet points really hit on factors such as either they do not pass their classes or they eventually do not have a high enough TSI score to move on in the program. And then the last two bullet points really are factors we've seen a lot during COVID, just factors we don't have control over family factors. They have to move, illness in their families, reasons such as that.
So this is what is on file in terms of the program evaluation template with the way that we were going to be measuring outcomes. We were looking at enrollment by feeder patterns, dual credit hours, students earning associate degrees, and then post-secondary enrollment. And so when we look at by feeder pattern, you can see that the bulk of students that enroll in the Collegiate Academy are from the Colony High School feeder pattern. LHS is the second largest group, followed by Hebron High School. One of the things we wanted to make sure we noted on this is that transportation is provided to students who do not live in the Colony High School feeder pattern if they do want to go to the Collegiate Academy. Additionally, we looked at dual credit hours earned by cohort, and the thing that you can see there is as the classes have had time in the program, they do have a lot more hours of dual credit completed. We put the average hours on there so you can see. But that class of 2023 that's been there for 2 years, 91.6% of them have 11 to 30 hours. So we are tracking up to where you get to majority of kids have somewhere between 31, well, more than 31 hours. We also went ahead and looked to see if you compared to students in the district that were not in collegiate, how did the dual credit hours pan out? And what you can see is that students in collegiate have more dual credit hours compared to students not in collegiate. It's important to note that students who don't enroll in collegiate do have opportunities at their home campuses to participate in dual credit, and many of them opt to take AP courses as well, and the AP courses are not in this data.
So four-year planning is another critical component of the Collegiate Academy in addition to the cohort model. You know, as students are entering in 8th grade, the collegiate counselors are sitting down with them to do that four-year plan looking into high school. One of the things that's really a core belief is that they are also high school students, and so we want to ensure that in addition to dual credit, they are accessing the career centers, they are participating in extracurricular activities, and with the amount of dual credit that they're taking, we want to make sure that they have a plan for that. They do this yearly, and in fact, sometimes they're doing it twice a year with their collegiate counselors. They're involving the parents and students in it so that the students are really understanding what their four-year plan looks like. And then as they get to junior and senior year, they're really looking at what are their post-secondary plans, because sometimes an associate's pathway may not be the best option. Sometimes it is the best option. And then there is a note on here that some of our students may elect to take an AP credit instead of a dual credit course for a class here or there, and Colin does transcript those based on their AP scores toward that associate's degree.
When students arrive at Collegiate Academy, they come from all the different feeder patterns in the district, and so we think it's very important to help these students be successful, that they make friends early and that they get involved early in the culture of the school. And so we implement things to help them be successful and to get more involved. So we take them on college field trips. We take them on a field trip to college so they can get their college ID. We have guest speakers that talk to them about college admission, so they learn about that process from the time they get involved in the program. And it's helped to where I think a significant factor on this slide is that 54% of our students in Collegiate Academy, they become involved in something at the Colony High School, not just Collegiate Academy, but some other extracurricular activity. And we think that's a huge factor in the overall success and continued success of the program.
So following up with graduation data, using the National Student Clearinghouse, 78% of our class of 2020 has enrolled in college after graduating from high school. I do not have data on the class of 2021 yet because they haven't completed a full year, but 31 of those students are in four-year colleges, 4 were in two-year colleges, 28 were in Texas, and 7 were outside of Texas. So we are seeing that our students are enrolling. Additionally, the class of 2020 had 68.9% of their students earn their associate's degree, which is a huge celebration. While it's not the 100% intent focus of Collegiate Academy, it's one of the things we really strive for, and so that's really, really great. The class of 2021 had 58.6%, and then the class of 2022 has had 7 students already in December, and 65 students are on track for May.
As we move towards the close of our presentation, we wanted y'all to be able to see a video of one of our students and just what she had to say about Collegiate Academy.
The Collegiate Academy, absolutely amazing program. I can't say it enough. You go into your freshman year and you start taking college classes, and then by your senior year, you have the opportunity to graduate high school with an Associates of Arts or an Associates of Science. I'm going for the Associates of Science. I have 3 more classes to take, and then I'll be completely done with it. So that's really cool and really exciting. I think a lot of people think it's scary going into the Collegiate Academy as a 9th grader because you're like, oh my gosh, I'm taking college classes as a 9th grader. The professors all understand everything. They understand we're still in high school. They understand we have other things going on, and a lot of times they're super lenient. They're willing to work with us. For me personally, the Collegiate Academy has helped me have more flexibility because I do want to go to med school, and that's a lot of schooling, but I have the option to cut my undergraduate by 2 years, and I can only do that for 2 years, and then med school for another 4 years. So that I'm already ahead, and if I don't want to do that, I can stretch out my 4 years, and I can take my time and really have a lot of time to understand the concepts and take not as many classes if I want to do that, but it just gives me the flexibility to do whatever I want.
So with that, our findings, really, if you read down the page, is that Collegiate Academy is meeting all the targets that they intended to meet in terms of measurements. They're serving students the way we thought they should serve students. Students are able to participate in high school and college at the same time, and so students are successfully engaging. My clicker ran out. Sorry, that's early in the evening. Can you advance that for me? Sorry. So our recommendation is that we should continue offering Collegiate Academy at the Colony High School. Can you click again? Just some pictures, and then one more time. And then just a reminder, we'll be back in the fall with a program evaluation about Spanish immersion and dual. Thank you for all of your support. And with that, we'll take any questions.
Thank you, guys. So we are going to clumsily attempt to do something a bit efficient based on our team of 8. So be patient with us. We're not going to cut ourselves short on quality of discussion, but we are going to try and be efficient. It's something we committed to try for 90 days. So if you don't get a lot of lovey-dovey stuff, that's probably why we're just trying something new. But so with that, I'll open it up because this is very important to what we have done in LISD. It's instrumental, so I don't want to cut off discussion. But if we have about 5 minutes of dialogue, I think it'd be helpful and meaningful. So, but Dr. Bonnie, you want to start first?
Watch this, no questions.
I'll send my questions in.
I'll also send my questions in. There's just a few.
And that simply means that we're not avoiding you, but we'll send questions in to Dr. Rapp. She'll post them for your benefit and ours. But we have a lot of detail here, and so don't read into that. We're trying something new here. Allison. We'll skip Allison. Ms. Hassett.
Thank you.
I'll submit my questions in.
Huh?
Okay, I can take their 5 minutes. I just have 2 really quick questions. I do want to ask. I'm really quick question. So do you perceive the costs going up with Collin Community College? Because the cost is amazing with that, but I'm a little nervous about that. And then how do you decide how many students you get each year?
I can speak to cost, and then I'll let Dr. Baxter speak to students. We signed a 2-year MOU, Memorandum of Understanding, with them. And perhaps Dr. Rapp has been in our meetings as well with Dr. Matkin, but they are committed to giving us a price that allows our students to continue to access this, not just at Collegiate Academy, but for dual credit. They have also committed to moving towards low to no cost. They're called OER, Open Educational Resources, for our dual credit textbooks. So they continue to bring that to the table anytime that we have a discussion.
In terms of cohort size, it will vary year to year, as you've seen on some of those slides. And really, we look at all sorts of admission factors into the program when we meet as a committee. A lot comes down to what they make on that TSI score and if they have a high enough score, because that has become the key predictor over time of if they're going to be successful in the program or not.
Thank you, guys. And I'll just say we had lunch with the mayor and a couple other gentlemen. Craig Martin was there. We were there to do business with the board, and the board will hear about that next week. And they were very just glowing about what has happened in the last 12 years with the relationship with the Colony High School and the Colony. Strong schools, strong community, strong schools. So I want to take this opportunity to pass that on real time from what they told us. You know, I think one thing is they'd like to see more board members, so we can help them do that, right? But really, just they were all to a person. And Craig, I think Craig would agree, just glowing about the relationship that we have with their community and what it means to them. So thank you for helping make that happen. Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Youngs.
And I was just going to say, I look forward to answering the questions that the board has about the presentation, and just thank you so much for sending those to me. Ms. Smith is coming up for compensation.
I know, Mr. Miller, that you always like Mr. Young's presentation, but unfortunately, I am next. So as you all know, there's been 2 prior meetings where we've talked to you about our compensation plan moving forward. And our hope is that tonight we will be able to look at some information that we shared with you at our last meeting, taking your guidelines, give you some additional information, and then we can move forward from there with a plan of presenting the compensation plan to you to vote on at the April 11th meeting. I would like to just say to you, we had I know it's not job fair time, but we had our job fair on Saturday. We saw lots of candidates. It was really exciting, and so I really appreciate and value the board's idea to move this forward sooner rather than our typical time in June so that we can look at the information and be ready to share that with potential candidates. I think it will really help us in the process.
You've got a copy of the presentation in front of you, so we'll go ahead and start while they're working on pulling it up.
So a couple of pieces of information in the presentation are simply review for you all as the board that you've seen previously in our presentations. On the first page of the presentation, it's just a historical perspective of what our salary increases have been. Just a note, we had a 3% from the midpoint raise last year. On the next page, you will see where our starting salary sits with districts around us. Lewisville currently has a $56,925 starting salary for teachers with 0 years of experience. In our comparative districts, that places us just right behind McKinney at $57,800, and then everyone else falls behind us in that category. Typically during this time period, we look at compensation of districts around us. This slide has Northwest on it because as of now, they are the only district that's come out. They're telling us that their salary for next year will have a starting salary of $58,250. Their plan is to give a retention payment of $500. They're going to disperse in June, and then they are planning to have a 3% of the midpoint. And because we are working on this earlier than we typically do, that's the only district that so far has brought out their information. So in our first meeting, we shared staff survey results with you. And as you remember, the number one thing that people were wanting in the district by far was a salary increase. So this slide shows you basically what a 2%, a 3%, and a 4% would cost if we were to give that throughout the district. The next slide shows you what a 2%, a 3%, and a 4% would cost for teachers only, which is roughly 3,800 employees. And then on the next slide, the second choice for our staff was adding 2 local leave days. We currently have 3 local leave days. If we were to add the additional 2 local leave days and everyone took them, it would cost about $1.2 million. The third choice that our staff said was important to them was the retention payment. If we were to do a one-time retention payment, that would be roughly $3.3 million. If we had a second retention payment, that would be about $6.6 million. And then we shared with you some other things to consider in compensation. One of those was our technology, raising our salaries of our technology department to be more competitive and closer to the market. And an item that you asked us for was additional information, and so we've shared this here. It just breaks down what our 3-year plan would be. For the first $215,000, you can see that we have 6 of our most critical positions that are currently below 85% of the market. This impacts 17 employees in those positions, so that would be the first area that we would address. And then you can see what our year 2 would look like and what our year 3 would look like in terms of raising our overall technology salaries. A couple of other pieces that we brought you at our last meeting was the possibility of offering 5 additional T-class intern scholarships. Several of you had the opportunity to be involved in that process, and so this would just give us the opportunity to have 5 additional interns. These would be our $7,500 allotments. And then we discussed the possibility of having Title I campus stipend. This would be a $1,000 stipend that we would pay to staff at our 27 title campuses. This would cost us approximately $2.2 million. A third option that I have not presented to you before, although it was in Dr. Rapp's Friday update, that really has been brought forth to us as an option since that meeting, was the ability to partner with Teachers of Tomorrow. Teachers of Tomorrow is an alternative certification program, but they have an idea that they have brought forward where they would partner with the district, and we would have a cohort of teachers within this alternative certification program that we select, but the district then is paying their membership into the cohort. So it would cost us $6,700 a teacher. In year 1, if we were to move forward with this, there would be 25 teachers in the cohort. Because we could select them, my thinking behind this is we would select special education certification. So this would be a special education certification cohort. They would then be committed to staying in our district the year of their internship and an additional 2 years. And the reason for the special education cohort is because that is the area where we have the greatest need. This is, if we wanted to move this forward, you can see that it would cost us about $167,000. But this is something that's been brought to us as an opportunity since our last meeting, so I wanted to share that with you as well.
All right, so based on where we ended in the budget workshop, our financial forecast had you starting with a deficit of $789,000. The scenario that we have on the screen was the most popular option that we left the budget workshop with, which was 4% salary raises for campus instructional staff. That includes teachers, nurses, librarians, and paraprofessionals, and then a 3% salary raise for all other staff. We left in the technology compensation amount, so that's 13.6, so that would put you at a potential deficit of 14.4. Go ahead and advance the slide for me if you don't mind, Ms. Smith. Thank you. We've added one other scenario, as I've shared with you previously in my Friday update, that there was a question around what if we included counselors, diagnosticians, psychologists, LSSPs, special education staff that are also functioning on the front lines with students every single day as well. And so we put them in the group of 4%, 3% salary raises for all other staff. That total, along with the technology, is 13.9, so that puts you at a potential deficit of 14.7. So those are your 2 scenarios for discussion this evening as we try to think through what we're bringing forward for a vote on Monday night.
Okay. This one's going to be a little more difficult, so I think we'll do a kind of a traditional round robin, and then if you want to kind of offer, as we did, I think, on Friday, your insights. I thought one of the options was 2% administrative.
It was in the budget workshop, but really the info as we went around and got it was 4% for the campus and 3%. We can bring back if the scenario comes back to 3 and 2, we can go back that direction. But
so most
were 4 and 3.
Let's do this for efficiency. If we could go around the horn, what's your preference? If you have a preference on the slide and you want to add something to it, number of days, then make your that's where we'll codify that person's position, and we can see how that looks at the end. How's that? Okay? All right. You want to start?
I have one quick question, and it's just a general one, which is, have we heard from TEA on if they're going to compensate us for attendance.
So ultimately, we've heard that they will provide some additional hold harmless funds. We were talking about that this morning, actually, Dr. Fitzhugh and Kathy Bray even and I. We still don't know what that amount will be, but we do anticipate by the time we have the budget workshop in May, probably before then, we can be providing some information along the way of how will that impact our fiscal year 22.
Okay. So what we're looking with that is probably just reducing that amount of debt more than, it's not going to be $14 million. I guess that's kind of what I wanted to put
Yes,
out there.
it will not eliminate the deficit. It should shrink a little bit your FY22 deficit.
Correct. I prefer scenario number 2. I guess that's where I'll just start.
Okay.
And just for clarification, so the T class and the Teachers of Tomorrow are not included in these numbers?
That's correct. The T-class Teachers of Tomorrow are not included, and definitely we can come back around on those ideas. One of the things I know you all said last time that's good is once you make it through the compensation piece, we can continue to bring back forward the ideas that you don't land on. So in May's workshop, we could revisit, the leave days, T-class, the Teachers of Tomorrow. We need some insight on tonight. If we could go one more round around the horn on that one, just to know where your heads stand. But
Okay.
yeah.
And then I am also landing more on scenario 2. I think that those that you have included are on the front lines, and those are the people that I hear from. I think that they are doing a remarkable job in these times, and I think that they should be included.
Allison?
Okay, so do you have a recommendation yet for the new starting salary for new teachers then?
So the starting salary is determined by what percent of raise we give, because Tim takes that that's all influenced by the percent of raise we're going to give. So Tim knows what it would, I'm sorry, he has an idea of what it would be if we give.
Sorry? Okay. Okay, so definitely love the idea of more T-class grants. I think those are great. Love Teacher of Tomorrow. To me, that's great. Okay, so I guess the only thing I would say, in any other year, I think that I would not, looking at the fact that a teacher raises like this are going to put us in the hole $14 million. I'm not saying this to you, I'm saying this to everybody else. It just makes me ill. Really. But I also know that, we're going to be in big trouble if we don't do it. So with the way things are going, so overall, between the two, I would, prefer scenario 2, because I know that we have problems, getting speech therapists and diagnosticians and stuff. So scenario 2 for sure for me, but I just kind of wanted, and I don't like the idea of giving raises when we're going to have to go into into deficit. I don't like that at all. But again, we'll be in big trouble with teachers, and surrounding districts will lose people. I'm concerned as it is that we're not going to have, as many people come back as we would normally have. So anyway, I think that's all you wanted to know from me, right?
I think it's important to understand with recapture, which is new to us, we will be in debt. We will incur a deficit every year unless we did a TRE, which we have no plans to do under the current model. So
Right.
This is the way it's going to be done in LISD until we move mountains in Austin, and it's what we've done the last 2 years.
I know. I just want to say. I just wanted to say it.
I also like the new scenario 2, but last time you were talking about the differential between when teachers get a bigger pay raise, it might not equal out with salaries when they try to go. Does this help? Does the number 2 help because counselors are included, but not administration? It's not included?
So it helps if a teacher's moving into a counselor position or any of the positions listed there. It makes it more difficult if they're moving into an assistant principal position or a position like a coordinator of a content area in learning and teaching. And like I said, that's not necessarily a one-year problem, but it certainly compounds over a couple of years.
So if we do it this year, it wouldn't be an issue this year. But if we do it this year, we need to remember next year that we cannot continue it. We need to have an asterisk of some kind that will, so we need to have another discussion.
Yes,
So
and
sure.
as we would need to remember that for every year we do that, we are compounding the compression of the salaries more when someone's trying to move from one of those positions into a higher position.
It'll be similar to catch up to technology.
Yes, ma'am.
Basically. Okay. Love the T-class, of course, and the Texas for Tomorrow, or whatever that was called. I like that as well, trying to get teachers the certifications for $200,000 or so. I would like to eventually, maybe not right now, I still like the idea of the leave. It's something I've heard time and time again. It's 1.2, and teachers deserve some additional time off, in my opinion. With the total on 2, this does not include the additional counselors that were in the other PowerPoint that was requested. Is that true?
Trying to think about
Is
other
that Mondays? Or is that-
counselors.
that
That's in the annual guidance and counseling update. Yes, thank you. That's
okay.
there.
Are those new positions, so they're not included in here?
Anything
And-
they're referencing that would be additional need would not be in here.
Okay. So that would be budget discussions rather than salary?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Just making
Yeah.
sure I understand.
Yes, thank you, Christy.
So, thank you.
Okay, so looks like door number 2 is looking really nice now. I would probably be in favor of scenario 2, but I had a few questions because definitely the Teachers of Tomorrow opportunity, that would be great. We definitely need to do that. On the technology, if the board commits to that, we're automatically committed next year. We're committed for the 3 years? Or is that every year they would decide, okay, do we want to now give the next bump? Would it be another decision? Or once we commit to this, we're in it for 3 years?
If we commit to the 3-year plan, we should be good for the 3 years. Because you would be approving the 3-year plan.
Now, okay, that's what I
Now.
just want to make sure every year we weren't deciding, okay, now let's do.
We would
next
need to
round.
bring something back to you if it's different than what we are presenting to you now.
Okay. And I'll be honest, Dr. Rapp kind of addressed this at the meeting, but I'm really concerned about just overall budget for the district and the virtual academy and what this looks like. So I think we really need to take a hard look at all this. I'm all about raises. We need to do that. So, but this does not include the additional stipend if we chose to do that, correct? That would be on additional to that. Okay, so I may not be willing to do that if we're going to do the 4%, so.
Well, can we clarify am I missing something there? There's no other, you're talking about the $500?
The $500.
Okay, so you're
It's not
saying,
included
the
in
option
this.
2, there's no 500, you would be concerned if they were to add that?
Add
Okay,
additional.
I got it, good.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
only up.
Me too.
That was it.
So, probably everybody else. Thank you. Anything else, Ange? Okay. Buddy?
Sheila, first off, thank you for all the information, and really both of them look good to me, and I'd certainly defer to my colleagues on 2 for sure. A couple additional thoughts. I think it is terribly important that we're getting this out early, but there's some other things that attract people to Lewisville ISD, right? There's a great reputational value in this school district, and I'm convinced that that will retain staff and also attract staff here. We also have great professional learning led by Dr. Miller that's a great value to employees. We also have a technology program led by Mr. Colbeck that provides a resource in everybody's hands, students and staff. We also have some of the best leave benefits in the North Texas area. And so all those things need to be discussed and recognized as attractions to Lewisville ISD that other districts can't do. And so I'm hopeful that as people are looking around and maybe even listening to us tonight, that there's some conversation about that. So I appreciate you letting me get on my soapbox there for a moment on that. I do think we need to have further discussion about the special ed cohort through Texas Teachers of Tomorrow and et al., whatever the name is. And then lastly, per Ms. Cox's point, and I know Dr. Rapp plans on bringing to us during the budget discussion some right sizing of staffing through attrition, meaning that everybody's still going to be employed. We'll just eat it through folks that already had planned to leave and retire. But really nice work, and appreciate your time, Ms. Smith.
Yes, Sheila, thank you, and thank you, Board. So I think, as Angie said, door number 2 or whatever, it's door number 2 is where everybody's leaning. It's a little more aggressive than I thought. I really wanted to send the strongest message to teachers. And I know sometimes you either have to take something away or give them more. There was no more to give. But nevertheless, this is a collaborative process, and it's about doing something that will get all of us on board and line. I've thought a lot about the days off too, like Ms. Hassett. I talked to, as I shared with Lori, 6 teachers. I wrote their names down. None of them want time off. They don't take it. And so I would need to see, for that to be an option, the percentage of take rate on that. It's nice for people to talk about it outside of these walls as it's important. What really matters is, do they take it? And is there other ways to take it? Because there's ways to take time off if you need a couple extra days by sharing with your friends and that type of thing. So, for me to consider that. But it may not need that if we just go with this option 2. I would like to see a retention payment. That's something we could always do if something happened, great in the legislature. So I'd say let's go with that. Now, this is not a vote. This is just a directional discussion. What I would offer the board is that what I would expect is that night when we vote on that staff will receive a communication. Can I share this? A communication via electronic means, a voicemail from Dr. Rapp that the board has taken action on whatever that is. The next day there will be a video that would come from me that would enforce those very things that you just talked about. What it's like to work at LISD, why it's important that you be at LISD, why we're doing these things, investing in you as people, right? And then the numbers that the board would approve would be shown up on graphics, but already been released by Dr. Rapp. But all with the intention of, we're doing this now because we really, really care. So if you're looking at that contract over there, have a conversation with us first. Call 1-800-SHEILA Smith. Does that make sense? Anybody want to comment on that?
Just real quickly, if we could be sure and hear from Ms. Prosnick and Catherine on Texas Teachers of Tomorrow, because I think since they started, they didn't get to say about those T-class or anything else there.
I would say that I'm in favor of the T-class because those are grants. Love that. The Texas Teachers of Tomorrow, and this is just I'm not very familiar with it. My question is the pool deep enough for us?
So we get to control that. Now, when they met with us, they said that there are already 70 members that are in their cohort right now that specifically say they want LISD, but I asked them, can we control who's in it? Because after all, we would be funding it. And I just believe as we enter it this first year, if that's what we do, we should make it a special education cohort where they're not only getting their special education certification, but they're agreeing to teach in a special education classroom for a minimum of 3 years to participate in this cohort. And I feel like for us and where we are now, that gives us the greatest advantage. We could go lower. The minimum they want to see in the cohort is 20. And so if we started that process and we felt like 20 is probably where we want to land, we could do that. They asked us not to go lower than 20, but this was really for us just to know if this is something y'all wanted us to pursue.
No, and that's good to know. When I say if the pool is shallow, they have 70. I don't know if they're LISD 70. That was kind of my point.
There are 70 that have specifically said LISD is their top choice.
They need to be ours too.
We have their emails, by the way.
And then as far as the Title I campus pay, 2.2 million is, to Ms. Lasanne's point, we're already at 14.
And I am also all for T-class, and thank you for continuing to pursue those. And then Teachers of Tomorrow, at the onset, I'm all for it. I would like to do some more research. Just how are these teachers acquiring the 300 hours of training, and are the coach visits, are those coaches for Teachers of Tomorrow? How close do we align? How close does our staff work with those, and even the continued professional development and ongoing training? I mean, just some of those things, and I'm sure that you have amazing answers for those things, but just as we're seeing those things on paper, those are just some of those things that I would really love to have more information just to digest so that I'm at complete comfort with pursuing
I
this.
can provide that information, the detail of that, to Dr. Rapp for her to include in your weekly update.
That would be wonderful. Thank you.
So I look at T-class and T-Tex, whatever the other one, as hiring options, not compensation issues, which you all should have broad discretion in doing that in your recruiting. But I would ask Dr. Rapp, since I'm not the expert, because some of these have been on the table, where it's not as simple as just saying, let's go out and hire T-class, or maybe it is. I'll defer to Dr. Rapp.
Yeah, so a couple of notes, I think, just to kind of wrap up the thoughts here is, one, to Dr. Bonner's point, Ms. Brim and her team are working with Ms. Smith and others on a marketing video about our school district, and there are great things to say about the district that have not just to do with compensation. And so I look forward to their work on that. But initially, our initial push will be to get out to the staff what you all have decided, and just try to tell the story, too, of the hard decisions that you all have to make as well with the budget that you're faced with. And I know everybody is thankful for the seriousness with which you take trying to invest the resources that we have, and they're not unlimited in as much as what the staff was asking for you to do. When it comes to T-class, a couple of notes. We saw T-class, the best investment of that was in growing our ability to have access to more teachers, people who are going to be certified, and trying to address the shortage. There were other grants available with T-class with the whole entire system we did not pursue because we've been in scenarios with TEA regarding some of those things, and there were additional strings attached. There were very specific providers you had to use that we had just done some of that with ADSY. We did not find that was beneficial to the district. And when it comes to overburdening teachers, some of those grants also require you to use very specific resources that would have required new teacher training and new elements of related to that. We didn't want to burden our teachers with that as well. So we pursued what we saw was the most beneficial bang for our buck with the T-class grants, and that was addressing our teacher shortage.
Thank you, and thank you, Sheila, and appreciate it. We'll package this all up. You'll see it in your Friday documents, and be ready to discuss it next week. Thanks. Mr. Youngs, a plethora of things.
Good evening, board members. If in your board book you'd find this page, please. Some of you have trouble with rows and columns of numbers, so I'll try to explain them this evening. If you would look at the leftmost column, please, and look at the bottom of that, you'll notice that that's 2040, which is less than 20 years from now. That amortization schedule is consistent with the board's guidance for us to not issue any debt with a maturity longer than 20 years. And the next column over, column 1, is our existing debt payments, and you'll notice it's $157 million for the next 7 years. The financings that we did in the summer of 20 and in the fall of 20 have positioned us this way so that we have consistent debt service for the next 7 years. Then columns 2 through 8 are a taxable advance refunding, which means we're doing the refunding a little bit before the call date. That makes the interest we pay to our investors taxable interest. Normally, the interest we pay is tax-free, but when you do it before the call date, it becomes taxable, so it's a taxable advance refunding. Then if you look at the bottom of column 2, you'll see $85 million. Then if you look at the bottom of column 7, that's $82 million. So we're going to turn in $85 million of debt service and turn it into $82 million of debt service. And the net result of that is at the bottom of column 8, which is the $3 million savings. So then we're going to couple that refunding with columns 9 through 15. Same arithmetic, bigger numbers. At the bottom of column 9 is the payments that we want to refund as a current refunding, not an advance refunding. You'll see $74 million. Then at the bottom of column 14, you'll see $34 million. So we're trading in $74 million of debt service for $34 million, saving $40 million. The combination of the $3 million and the $40 million is exhibited in the final column out to the far right, $43 million. That's what the taxpayer will see. That's the benefit to the taxpayer. But remember that inside that $43 million is 35 of our debt service money. So we're paying off debt early, and that's reflected inside of this number. So in terms of interest rate, you all know that a couple of weeks ago the Federal Reserve met and raised interest rates. If you look at the third line from the bottom in the blue notes, the interest rate we're thinking might happen is about 2.6. That used to be about 2.25 2 weeks ago. That's just, now there's more to it than just the Fed raising rates. The bond market is like the stock market. There's a lot of emotion there. There's some buying and selling every day. The Russian incursion into the Ukraine is affecting markets. Supply chain is affecting markets. So there's a lot of influences that are causing these. And then the third line up from the bottom in the peach color, we think the interest rate might be about 2.0. It was 1.78 2 weeks ago. So that's just the facts of the bond market, and they change every single day. And so what we'll extend to you is the parameters of interest rate and other details relating to the refunding. The board will grant the superintendent and I pricing authority if we go to market and we're inside of the parameters that you set. You grant us the authority to go ahead and make the sale. So let me pause there and ask Mr. Miller if there are any questions.
Is your only request tonight of us, you're not giving us the parameters this evening, you're just asking, is there anything that that we want you to consider as you put those parameters before us for next week, correct?
You'll see the parameters next Monday.
Okay. Ms. Sells, do you want to go first?
I think I need to.
You can send
I'll send in
letters to Dr.
I'll
Rapp
have questions.
or Mr. Young's, however she wants to do it, and we can get those by Friday. Is it? Yeah. Allison? Christy?
Just hurry.
Yeah, hurry.
You didn't hear her say, hurry. Interest rates are not going south, they're going north. Thank you.
I'll send more questions in.
I'll answer more.
No questions for me. Thank you, John. Appreciate it. Westside Aquatic Center, I seen this is Jason.
Now I'm on, okay. We'd like to provide an update, as mentioned, the Westside Aquatic Center renovation and repairs project. Jump right in. So just to provide a brief background on the facility itself very quickly, the Westside Aquatic Center was approved as part of the 2008 bond program, It was designed in 2012, constructed, and it opened in 2014. The building was designed by SHW Group, which is now Stantec. At that time, in 2012, SHW Group did not perform their own mechanical engineering MEP, so the mechanical systems were designed by an outside engineering group. The reason we're here and even talking about this project is because we've had ongoing facility concerns at the Westside Aquatic Center facility. The concerns began early on, even within really the first year of operation. The concerns are primarily consisted of two main areas, indoor air quality and corrosion of materials. The first, the indoor air quality, we've seen complaints, especially during heavy use events, meets, which would be the worst time that you could have issues, if you will. Typically, the complaints consist of general discomfort, stuffiness, up to and including breathing irritation, even up to that level. And then on the corrosion of materials, we have typically seen this primarily affecting metallic components, which would be all of your stainless steel, your handrails, door hardware, and even into the metallic components of the electrical systems, which would include the fire alarm, technology switches, etc. It is important to note that all indoor pools deal with some level of these two conditions, but the Westside facility we've seen has been more than we would ordinarily see in a facility of this type. The district has worked with several groups over the years to address these concerns. As I mentioned, they came up pretty early on in the life of this facility, and so we had the original mechanical engineer reviewed the facility several times beginning in 2015, 2016. I believe even some items, some metallic items were even coated at that time. HVAC and pool equipment manufacturers have reviewed the equipment several times, coming out and reviewed those systems to make sure that they were performing as designed. Over that time, the facilities department would make small tweaks. It would seem to get better, but then we would receive additional complaints and see additional corrosion. In 2019, we did hire a third-party engineering firm to come out and really review the HVAC mechanical system. At that time, it was the first time we really had heard about the source capture systems that we talked about in previous meetings, and reviewed some other aquatic centers at that time that had source capture, and found that it was kind of the new standard in pool design, these source capture systems that capture the air kind of right off the pool. Then at that time we had a small pandemic, I'm sure everybody remembers, and as time went on, we got some additional complaints. We had discussions of all of this stuff with Dr. Rogers at that time, and some very preliminary cost discussions with him, with some districts that were doing some retrofits with source capture, and knowing the kinds of monies we were talking about. And so at that time, it was discussed about hiring Stantec Architecture in the fall to do a full, in-depth, full design review of the facility. And we did that. And so at this time, Trey Laird is with me here. He's a principal at Stantec and is going to take us through that review.
Thank you, Jason. Our team is made up of 2 technical architects, but 3 different mechanical engineers. None of our core team was involved in the design of the facility, and I think there are some positive aspects to that. Some of them are up on the screen now because we really started from the beginning to try to understand the problems that were happening with the facility. So we started kind of in reverse chronology. We looked at that third-party report that Mr. Hughes provided to us. We also looked at the response to the mechanical engineer of record to the third-party report. We actually went back, looked at all the design documents, all of the submittals, all of the testing and balancing reports that were done during construction. We actually went through a process of redesigning the mechanical systems based upon airflow. And then what we did was compare those to the third-party report, the response to the third-party report by the engineer, and we went out and took some actual readings with our own equipment to see if we could verify airflow quantities that were either in the report or the documents. What we found was that some of the aspects of the third-party report were correct. There were some areas that were designed to be positive, some of the rooms in the building that were not functioning as positive. But we found that some of the aspects of the third-party report were incorrect because they did not go out and do field verification of those items. And so what I'm trying to describe to you is a very thorough beginning from the very beginning, looking at the design and looking at all the reports from the experts that were brought to bear. Way. There are a number of things that are key components to our finding of the report. The first thing is that there have been some water quality problems along the way, and potentially some that happened at the beginning of the facility. I only heard about these through conversations with others who were involved at the time, who are no longer with our firm, or they were with LISD at the time, and those water problems probably led off to a poor start of the facility. And so some of that corrosion happened early, and that kind of set the pace for degradation of some of those materials in a more accelerated way. Two, we think that source capture, as Jason mentioned, is a very good strategy for this building. Source capture actually captures the harmful off-gassing of the pool. That's a natural part of the chlorinization process. And we think this is a strategy that's going to be an excellent option for improving air quality in the building. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in the coming slides. Now let's go ahead and finish this. I think we found that there is a problem with outdoor air at the spectator area. We have a fundamental disagreement with the mechanical engineer of record about how much outdoor air is required. It's a professional disagreement on how you determine the code. But essentially, in discussions with the engineer of record, their approach was to take the pool area and compare it to the spectator area and choose the most restricted of the two for the outside air. Our interpretation of the code is you actually add those together. So rather than take the most restrictive of A and B, our approach would be to take the sum of A and B and C and design to that. The room is the same room, and it's not a separate atmosphere, and that's kind of led to a difference of opinion. But we believe that outside air is really going to help with some of the issues that Mr. Hughes talked about with throat and eye irritation from spectators. We've noticed a number of rooms that were designed to be positive, but they weren't functioning as positive. We looked at the design documents. We looked at the testing and balance. It suggested the rooms should be positive. However, we go out there and check, and they are not positive. What we found is there are some subtle things happening with the design that's kind of short-circuiting that. We have ways to counterman that short-circuiting, and I'll talk to you a little bit more about that as well. And then we're working with kind of new technologies here that are helping us to come up with a comprehensive approach. And some of the pressurization techniques that we've come up with are unique, but we want to come up with a way to validate that after the fact. And the way to validate that after the fact is not to look at each system and check each system. It begins with checking each system and making sure it's right, but we're recommending a more comprehensive approach to making sure that all of the systems are working in coordination. And that was something that does not happen with the typical testing and balancing report that was done at the time of occupancy of this building. It's something that we would recommend after we go through a number of these things that I'm suggest in this presentation. Lastly, there are some unsightly things happening with some of those materials. There's no doubt about that. There has been some coatings that seem to be actually performing well, and we are working with one of the larger painting and coating manufacturers in the actually they're global, but certainly one of the largest in the United States, and we think we have some solutions that are going to really improve the way they look. And I think it would be better to coat some of these things than actually replace them. I think we can provide more longevity in that manner than an actual replacement. So if there are no further questions, I'd like to get into some of these details and show you how they look and plan and how they actually function. Let me get this right. The first thing is water chemistry control. The controller in the building is of the vintage of the early teens. There has been a lot of improvement in these types of systems. What we have recommended is this BEXA 7 system. It is amazingly comprehensive in the information it can provide. Not only does it provide it on site, it provides data that can be observed by Mr. Hughes' teams through the energy management systems at LISD. The system is also intelligent in that it can anticipate your needs and actually perform some of the water chemistry modifications itself. State law requires that you do have a certified pool operator, and that certified pool operator must approve these types of methods. But what this is going to provide is a much greater understanding of your water chemistry, the trending of your water chemistry, and the ability to actually be proactive in helping you control issues with water chemistry. And water chemistry, I think, has been a problem that has happened kind of sporadically through the life of the natatorium. I think there are times when the water chemistry is under control and in check, and there are other times when it's getting off. I think what this device gives you is the ability to understand when you're getting off, to be able to trend those things, and to be able to be proactive in predicting when they happen and responding.
We think that's important because everything stems from your water quality. This will take all the guesswork out of that. We'll know that everybody involved in the district, from athletics to facilities, will know that the water quality is all going to be very transparent, and so we'll know where we're starting from. And so once you check that box, you can kind of move down to all the other boxes.
And this is why we're talking about this first, because it is essential that we improve water quality first, and now I'd like to talk about how we have ideas for improving air quality. This low source capture device is going to be on the south wall, and if you can see where I've got kind of the dash bar, that is the south side of the facility. Right now, there's not much happening on that wall, but what we recommend is installing a unit like this, and these are pictures that were on the tour that Mr. Hughes and I took of a similar facility at Plano. And what you see is a bench with, looks like a radiator, right? This is a very powerful exhaust system. So the bench you can sit on, but this unit is tied to fans that would be outside of the building, and it essentially creates a very strong draft across the pool deck and the pool surface, and it draws that corrosive air that's around the pool surface. The advantage of that, it's low, right? And we're keeping that corrosive air low, out of the breathing zone of people walking around the pool. This is really one of the only retrofit systems that's commercially available. It comes in a number of different options. We think this is the one that suits your facility best. We will entertain bids from other folks, but it will probably not be a package system that has this type of success, but we're still interested to see what the market could provide in a similar system. Here's how it would look along that side. The blue is represented by the part that's actually doing the exhausting. Let's call it, the fin area, which is drawing in the air. The green is the box that the air is captured and drawn out of through the orange ductwork that's connected to a fan out on the outside of the building. If you analyze how airflow is currently happening in the building, there is a push of air from the west end, and there is return air that's represented by the pink in the east end of the building. And so now, if you think about that zone that's generally low, of that corrosive air that I'm talking about, it's moving on a conveyor belt from west to east. It's along the long axis of the room. What this is going to allow us to do is to shorten that transfer. And so instead of taking it across the long axis of the room, we'll draw it both to the south and to the east in a shorter direction. So this is advantageous because of the distance it moves to its point of exhaust, right? At the return air into the building, the ductwork is high. And notice the pink area. That's because there are some very large mechanical units that are actually that tall outside of the building. That's what types of HVAC systems are appropriate for this. This is a standard design. It was done for many years before there was an evacuator type system. But notice that this return air is not only returning air from the pool, it's returning air from the entire volume of the room, which is very large. And so it's more toward the bottom of the pool deck, but it has to do the work of the entire room. What would happen now with the evacuator is we will be able to rotate that ductwork to really take care of the upper portion of that room, the very high volume of that space, but the evacuator system will be providing that function down low. And so you notice how we're keeping that more corrosive air more consolidated and down low for its evacuation. This is the way the airflow works in the building. Notice the ducts at the top of the roof. There are 3 that are pointing toward the upper part of the roof, the upper part of the slope, and there is one pointing down. The airflow in the building, or let's say particularly the natatorium room, is in a clockwise and counterclockwise motion. This is important because we are trying to keep that air that I was talking about more consolidated and down so it can work on that conveyor belt and be evacuated. This is a common way to do HVAC prior to an evacuator. But our plan is to take that lower register and turn it to face in the same direction as the other 3 registers and begin to circulate air upward. That air is cooler and heavier as it blows toward the upper portion of the building. That air begins to fall because it's lower. It's enhanced by the air that's actually serving the spectator area that's represented by the square box at the right part of that slide. And so what we're doing is we're taking a motion that's both counterclockwise and clockwise, and we're simplifying this to a clockwise motion. And as that cold air that's being supplied falls onto that level of chloramines that we're evacuating, it's helping to actually push them out in the way that the evacuator system is drawing it out. And so this is a much more efficient way to deal with the corrosive chemicals that arise from the pool. And it's, like I said, it is a natural process of chlorine breaking down organics in the pool water and creating chloramines. And that's actually what you smell in the building when you walk in. It's that process. It's not the chlorine itself. It's the byproduct of the chlorine breaking down those organics. Here's some of the technology that we're leveraging. At the time this was not designed, there was not this type of sophisticated computer modeling. I'm going to show you a model of kind of a longitudinal analysis of the airflow. So think of this as a slice of bread you're looking at. Or if you're medically inclined, think of this as a CAT scan that can image through the body in various planes. And what you're looking at is velocities. And this is important because some velocities we want to move faster in this space. Some we actually want them to slow down so we're not spreading those chloramines, that more corrosive air at the bottom. We want to keep it consolidated. And so when I run the model, and let's see if this works, this is providing us an enormous amount of information about how things are working. Notice some of those green areas. Remember when I was talking about clockwise and counterclockwise motions? Some of those airflows are actually colliding and lifting some of that more corrosive air up. What we're doing is we're going to have a more consistent single direction, but we're also going to be able to slow down some of those velocities because the evacuator down below will be doing the evacuation of those chemicals so much more efficiently. So I don't know if this makes a ton of sense to everyone, but I'd be happy to show that again. This technology really is allowing us to design this and check it even before we get to the commissioning part that I mentioned in one of our recommendations. Any questions or comments about that?
I think we're good on questions right now. Do you guys have something else you're going to present?
Real fast, I'll go
Okay.
through this. We are going to add ATSAT air, and we're going to add it into the spectator area, as I mentioned. There will be a new ductwork run here and a new unit that will serve this. I think this is going to help tremendously with some of those issues that we talked about that some of your patrons are having. The commissioning, which I've already mentioned, this is going to be hugely important. It's not only going to be tested individually, but it's going to be tested as a composite system. And before we actually start working on some of these issues with some of the metal components, we're going to get the pool water right, and we're going to get the air right. And then when we make these improvements to those materials, we're going to maximize the longevity of the work that's going to be done in coating and retrofitting those items. And with that, that's the end of my presentation. I think
one more slide, just
Jason
real quick,
has
and then
one
we'll
thing.
open up to questions. This is just on next steps of kind of where we're at. Maybe answer a few questions before we get them. The plan is to really complete the bid documents that Stantec is working on this month in April. Work with the construction manager at risk, and then they will bid that project in May, and that would allow us to present a GMP at the June board meeting. And then right now, working with athletics, we're looking at construction planned for summer, starting after that June meeting, but with the heaviest work beginning in August. And again, that's working with the athletic department on their best time.
So that affects us big time. A lot of people use that facility. So what do we do to move this up and get it done for the next school season? Because we've been talking about this for 4 or 5 months now.
The beauty of starting in August in working with the staff is there's heavy use in the morning and heavy use in the evening. We have all those hours in the middle of the day for the workers to really begin in earnest, and that works for them because they like to work during those times. If you look at all of the work that I've talked about, it is kind of separate bits of work, and working with daytime hours on that, a lot of this is going to be driven by when we can get that material released and available in the kind of strained supply stream that we have. But we feel like starting that evacuator system in August is very doable.
Well, and again, that's at the request of the athletics because they have such heavy use up until August. She said that she basically has a 6-week window starting August 1 that would allow us to get in there basically that's kind of her maintenance time of the year anyway. We can start some of these items right after the June meeting's approval,
and we will.
Coatings, replacing some of those things.
Yeah, I mean, I think we'll separately address request of athletics for the board that's been asking for this in the absence of athletics not championing it themselves, right? So this was the first tour our interim superintendent took, was to this facility. It's that bad. So it is what it is at this point. Just if you guys, whatever we have to prove to get it done, once we get that, you get those proper documents, let's just get it done. We need this thing back to a world-class facility. 8 years ago, we were talking about a pool liner coming from Italy. Now we're talking about little kids thinking there's poop all over the bathrooms. And that's where we're at. It's sad. So I think we're all in agreement that we need to move forward. Ms. Brozink?
So start in August, what would be your completion date?
Well, our working schedule with the contractor is to complete it over the fall and be finished in the winter.
16, I'm not getting timelines.
Right now, the schedule that we have with them, that I have, is finishing in December.
Those are all elements that we are working on. We've been meeting basically
we meet every
a couple
week.
of times a week, trying to work with the contractor on that particular schedule, on the design documents, and so we're building that currently as we're working through each week.
Also, could we get a copy of this presentation? I couldn't quite read some of this stuff up there. I'd appreciate if we could be emailed a copy of the presentation.
Sure.
Anybody have any questions, they can send them in. Do you want to ask one? Okay.
I just really wanted to say, it's in Boulder. Wouldn't, Dr. Rapp? It's in there now. Dr. Rapp, one thing that might be fun, I've said this before occasionally, if our building trades or architecture students could have a case study or a field trip, be a fun little case study for our students to learn.
Great. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank
You know this is an important
It's a high
project to
priority.
us, so, and high
Understand.
priority. So looking forward to getting it done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I think we're going to bring up Randy for the next couple. We're going to talk about GMP for Marcus High School Fine Arts. And we're going to talk about McAuliffe Elementary. And then one of you is going to transition to the bond update. I assume, Mr. Youngs, that might be you? Okay, no, it's Mr. Fight's going to give us an update on all the projects related to his portion. Randy, the floor is yours.
All right, well, good evening, President Miller, Dr. Rapp, and the board. So my first item tonight is the guaranteed maximum price for the Marcus High School Fine Arts renovation project. So this is a year 5 project with Stantec as the architect and Jackson Construction as the CMAR, construction manager at risk. The GMP process was presented to the board at the February 12th, 2018 board meeting. The scope for this project is just interior renovation work related specifically to fine arts spaces only. This project was advertised and competitively bid to subcontractors by Jackson Construction. Those bids were scoped, and a GMP, guaranteed maximum price, of $1,242,257 has been presented. This project is in budget and presents the best value to the district. The major renovation portion of this project will occur this summer. However, there will be some door replacements that go on in the fall due to long lead times on the doors themselves. And then this project will be presented as a consent item next Monday night for approval. And with that, I'll answer any questions you have on this one.
Any big questions for Randy on this one? Next item.
Okay. All right, so my second item is a discussion of the McAuliffe Elementary School pre-K playground replacement project. This was also a year 5 project, and the board previously awarded VLK Architects and Jackson Construction the work on this one. So the scope of this project is really a very small. It's a pre-K playground only, so this isn't the main playground at the campus. And through the normal bidding process, Jackson Construction developed a guaranteed maximum price of $121,025, which is well above our budget. So our construction cost budget for this project was just under $50,000. So since this project really only involves one trade, really a playground vendor, that's what they do, we feel that putting it back out as a standalone competitive sealed proposal bid will allow us to get this project back near the budget. We've utilized that method on a couple of other projects in this bond, if you remember. So we would utilize the already completed drawings that VOK has completed. And in order to do this, you'll see two consent items next Monday night. The first would be to cancel the contract with Jackson Construction, and the second would be to change the construction delivery method from CM at risk to competitive steel proposal. At that point, we'd put the project back on the street for bid, and with the hopes of bringing pricing back in May to the board for approval so we can get it done. With that, I'll answer any questions you have on this one.
Nope, I think we're good on this one, too. Anybody can submit questions through the wrapper right here,
All right.
and she'll get them out to you guys as necessary. You're going to go through the
Yes, sir.
list of projects then, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Angie? He's going through the list of projects.
And I'm gonna
Angie's
ask
looking at,
Mr.
there are moments here with
Colbeck
Angie
to
that we just have to remember are moments where they might be last moments for us, and we're going to celebrate them. So, Brian's coming up too, Angie.
And Mr. Garrett.
Yes.
Oh, and Mr. Garrett. So look at this.
All right, so finally, I was asked to provide the update regarding the financial status of the overall 2017 bond. And so I'll start this presentation just talking about the construction projects, and then I'll pass the torch over to Mr. Garrett and Mr. Colbeck so they can hit on their areas. So first off, just some definitions. So for all the construction slides, active projects are not included in the report since all the money associated with those is already encumbered and savings are not yet realized. And when you see the term total budgeted, that's the sum of all project budgets per year that are fully completed. And when you see total actual cost, that's the sum of all project costs per year on the projects that are completed. And then finally, the remaining savings available will show how much money is remaining after all the expenditures and transfers. So, for example, the Year 4 middle school fine arts projects, as you remember, were over budget, and we tapped into a lot of the savings that we had in Year 1 and Year 2. So you'll see that as we go through. The savings that you will see tonight will give you kind of a current snapshot right now. And it's important to remember that numbers will change as we move forward. Other projects will close out. Bills will be paid and reconciled, and unused amounts on POs will be unencumbered. So our goal and our hope is that as we move forward, there'll be additional savings as well. So the information on this slide you've seen before, but I think it's important to remember with each project in this bond on the construction side, there's really two main categories in that budget. And the first is construction cost. And so that's the number that makes up the GMP. And that's all the construction work itself, everything that the construction manager at risk is in charge of. It also includes their fees and general conditions. And then on top of that, you have soft cost on each project. There's a lot of extra items, and I won't go through the whole list there. And not every project has every single one of those. But the major pieces are really the architect and engineer fees. We do third-party commissioning on a lot of our projects. We do third-party air monitoring if there's abatement required. We have geotechnical services for any new construction, materials testing, and FF&E, which is furniture, fixtures, and equipment. So all of our brand new schools and a lot of our renovations, we purchase a lot of furniture and equipment for those to outfit them as needed. So for each one of these years, you'll see these are the slides that you've been used to seeing, right? There's our project list. And so again, the green projects are not included in the cost summary because they're still ongoing and all funds are encumbered. So, and I will point out on the Year 1 slide here, the Purnell demolition, Mill Street Phase 2, is actually coming next Monday night to the board for closeout on that project. You'll also see some asterisks on a couple of these, and those are essentially safety and security projects that we managed in this bond. So the total for bond Year 1, total budgeted was $90.1 million. Total actual cost, $86 million. And remaining savings available, you'll see $341,000. So again, we tapped into a lot of the savings from Year 1 to pay for some of the overages for some projects we'll see later. On bond Year 2, you'll notice, of course, the green ones are still in progress. College Street renovations will come next Monday night as a consent item for closeout. So the sum of all the blue projects here, total budgeted was $187.5 million. Total actual is $169.5, and the remaining savings available is $1.78 million. Year 3, same thing. The sum of the blue projects here is total budgeted $36 million. Total actual cost $33.8, and remaining savings available $840,000. So for year 4 and 5, a lot of these projects are still in progress, so I kind of combined the two slides first before the summary. One of these, the high school turf replacements from year 4, is actually coming next Monday night as a closeout item. I'll have the sum of these blue projects here, and really none of the year 5, because none of them have started. What I do want to point out in year 5 is all but 5 of these projects have already been, the GMPs have already been approved by the board. And of those 5, we have the Marcus High School Fine Arts renovation, which we just talked about, and the McAuliffe Pre-K Playground, which we just talked about. So we're making good progress on all the year 5 work. So the summary for bond years 4 and 5, total budget at $8.5 million, and total actual cost $8 million, with a remaining savings available of $427. Now it's important to remember in the bond, we had a line item for possible renovations for academies, okay? And so we've now completed numerous elementary STEM academies throughout the district. We've done some signage for middle school STEM academies, and there really are there currently are no additional academy projects being discussed or designed, to my knowledge. So there is currently money available in this line item that I wanted to share with y'all. That's about $4.6 million on that line item there. So in summary, when you add up all the savings that I've shown here tonight, year 1 through 5, as well as the academy funds, we've got about $8 million in savings available. And as I mentioned before, we do anticipate additional savings coming as we continue to close projects out. I just don't have those figures tonight because they're still encumbered. So this next slide shows some of the extras, right, that we were able to do with some of the 2017 bond funds that were not originally budgeted. So this slide shows some of the projects, where we transferred some of that money out, right, previously. And so some of the things we were able to do is the emergency responder radio antenna system at all the high schools. We did some parking lot work at Central Elementary and the Aquatic Center East. We did the DeGan Elementary School change order. If you remember, that was the $3 million change order for all the exterior walls on DeGan Elementary. That was a big one. We had the Colony High School turf change order, which raised the level of the playing field up to the flush with the track for safety. We had the Delay Middle School change order that we discussed back in February. And as I've mentioned several times tonight, we had the year 4 fine arts projects, which needed a little extra funding. And there were some additional projects along the way where we needed to tap into savings, and those all came to the board at that time. So while talking about the overall bond financial outlook, I think it's also important to kind of talk about our staffing in the construction department a little bit. So prior to the 2017 bond, the construction department had 3 permanent positions. That's my position. I've got senior project manager and a secretary. In October of 2017, I brought a plan forth to the board and presented how we could manage this entire bond in-house by hiring some employees. And that took one construction clerk who's responsible for all the payment applications and invoices. And I can tell you with a bond this size that there's a lot of bills that come in. So that's a lot of work. One additional project manager, which provides administrative oversight of projects. And then 6 construction manager positions for field oversight of each project, which we felt at the time was very important to have somebody actually boots on the ground in the field overseeing the construction. So a total of 11 people to manage the $737.5 million bond package. For our current staffing levels, we have the 3 permanent positions filled, the construction clerk, project manager, and we have 4 of the 6 project managers. And then I will note in 2021, technology actually hired an additional project manager just for the technology pieces in the bond, and they've been a great help. We work hand in hand with that individual. So far, all staffing costs have been funded utilizing bond interest earnings, which is a great thing. We will continue to do that and also use future project savings if needed, but we think the bond interest earnings alone is enough. Staff levels will be maintained at an appropriate level for the remainder of the 2017 bond work. And so as I mentioned, we've got 4 of the 6 construction managers. We don't plan on hiring those other 2. As we continue to the end of the bond, we'll certainly make sure we have the appropriate levels. Now, there are other things just besides the day-to-day management of the projects that we have these folks helping us with, and it's very important. Some of those things are the facilities assessments. We have updates to the ed specs and construction standards that they're helping with, and all the closeout process, which includes the financial, the punch list, and the warranty work. So there's a lot of work that's involved in every one of these projects. It's important to note that funding for staffing has already been identified and set aside, and that's separate from the available savings that I showed earlier. So that $8 million does not, we don't need to worry about staffing in that that's a true $8 million that we have available. And with that, I will turn it over to Mr. Garrett to talk about safety and security.
Thank you, Randy. Mr. Garrett.
Well, as Mr. Fite said, we did have several projects managed with multiple departments out of the $28.8 million tagged for safety and security items. Our department had a multi-phased project to do the security camera enhancements. That project has been complete. The remaining savings available is $0 on that, and that's, as a reminder, was developing a fully digital camera system spread across the entire district. A good reminder on an elementary school before this bond had typically 6 to 9 cameras, most of those all interior. The average elementary school now has roughly 45 to 50, covering hotspots, doors, bus pickup points, recess places. So coverage across the district has increased and used for various purposes. It helped greatly during COVID closure, looking at close contact tracing, helps us with investigations, and helps our SROs through their projects as well. The 3.3, some of y'all might remember the number for the security camera project was $3.3 million. We did put the money used for storage and compute into the technologies numbers, which Mr. Colbeck will talk about. So ultimately on the project that we managed, that number of $2.4 million is what we ended up with.
All right, good transition into technology projects. So on the list here, you're going to see projects that are completed in the blue, and then we have projects that are really still, we still need to do more work. As Matt referenced, the security camera project happened, but we are going to need to buy additional storage for cameras coming up, and then also the phone system. We ended up putting that in early in the project, so we're actually getting to the point where all of basically the back-end licensing, the support agreements, everything that we need to keep that system going is going to be due at the end of 2022. So we're going to have to actually get that bid out to keep that system going. In the balance, the balance there is just over 1.9 million. So on the technology side, this should hopefully look familiar. If you recall, there were basically two key areas for technology. One was staff and student devices, and that's really broken down into our devices around one-to-one, staff laptops or classroom sets, and then what we call program specific. That would be basically every other area where we need something above and beyond what an iPad would use. Typically that's in CTE or very special programs. And then in the area of network and infrastructure, that's the data centers, the switching, all the stuff behind the scenes, as well as the infrastructure in the classroom, the audio-visual projectors, Apple TVs, and then we have to maintain our paging and sound systems as well. So the number that was in the bond for technology was just over $99 million. When we look at what's been done to this point, what you see on the slides now is the area of student and staff access. The items in blue are already completed. As you can see, we replaced our staff laptops and iPad replacement. We did the 1-to-X rollout in all the various grade levels. We implemented the Apple Pencils in high schools, ELA and math. We did our class set of iPads, and then if you recall, we ordered the 4th grade iPads for this coming year so that when the seniors graduate, we can bring those back in and use to manage the program for spares and so forth. And I'll talk a little bit more about that later in the technology usage presentation. As far as other projects that are complete, we've replaced the video production equipment as well as journalism in the past year. The other ones we have in green because they're ongoing. We have basically technology as it hits a 5-year or older window coming into that school year. That's what we're replacing. So a lot of that has been done in previous years. However, it's just it's a consumable that continues to have to be replaced. In addition, we're doing some work right now. Michelle Jacobson's team is working on looking at our shared technology. That's one of the bigger areas that we haven't replaced. That would be like the carts that we have out on campus. Through our Technology Advisory Council, we've had conversations with those groups as far as what is ideal, and the feedback we're getting is just try to get it so that every student is using the same device. So what we're trying to do is we're going to be doing some piloting here in the next couple weeks to find out how we can actually set up the iPads as multi-use. If that's successful, we potentially could create a new standard around that and provide potentially a better option for the campuses, and I'm hoping we can do it for less money than what we originally planned. So that's going to be ongoing. In the later presentation, I'm going to be sharing information around what we're planning to bring forward for this year's program-specific device refresh. I do want to point out on this slide, the current remaining balance is just over $12 million, but you'll notice there's a revenue side of this, which is the Apple residual value as well as some interest earnings. So that's bringing in a total of $5.4 million, bringing the current balance at just over $18 million. In the area of network and infrastructure, again, Blue is complete. We've completed all the Apple TV refreshes, all the projectors, our zone printing project we did a couple years ago. There's still a little bit of work to do for campus sound and paging. And then on the cybersecurity upgrades, kind of like the phone system, those are projects that we put in very early. Our firewalls, for example, some of our core pieces in our data center, that stuff is going to have to be additional service agreements, licenses are going to have to be repurchased. In addition to the fiber equipment for the wide area network is coming up. And then also we haven't actually done the switch replacement project yet in the actual switch closets out on campus, as well as that's kind of bundled with the UPS project. So currently there's just over $11 million remaining in that account to finish those projects. So I think that's a wrap. And Dr. Rapp, Mr. Miller, go for it.
Yeah, I think it would be good if we could, Dr. Rapp, kind of see this in a consolidated. We've got 3 different kind of categories, very important categories. Maybe summarize that in some type of dashboard, or what? Not dashboard, but in some type of format where we can look at and go, hey, Randy, there's where he's sitting at. Here's where Brian's sitting at. Here's where safety and security's sitting at, and we can, easily kind of have that in our little hip pocket, if you will, for talking points. That would be very helpful. But I think this was great. First time around, kind of getting a good update on this. Anybody else want to?
If there are any anticipated increases that you know of from the remaining items that we won't be surprised about later, if you know of anything later, you can tell us.
So my biggest one is going to be the Colony High School multipurpose and football stadium. And if you remember, we brought the football stadium last year, and it was over budget. We thought by combining it, we would make some headway. Unfortunately, with the market being the way it is, we're going to be considerably over on that one. And so I'll be bringing more information to the board in the future when I have a better idea of pricing. The contractor's actually pricing the latest set of drawings right now, so we can get a good idea. But we will need some funds for that. That's the main one. The good news is a lot of the other Year 5 projects we've been able to kind of bring in, and we're working really hard to get them as close to budget as we can. So,
I would just add to that, on the technology side, I think we're going to be okay with the remaining balances, but as we're going through the process of getting quotes and reviewing technology, what we paid for something 2 years ago, it's considerably up. And I've noticed that as a consumer. If you go to Best Buy and look at a monitor, you might be paying double what you did 2 years ago. So that does have me concerned as far as how much mileage we can get out of the funds remaining.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. Okay, Mr. Colbeck, I think you're still up. Or did we combine that?
Yeah, you've got meals and food services. And
Oh,
then
okay.
Brian.
Oh, I see. Yeah, you're right. Meal services. Sorry, Jeremy.
President Miller, Dr. Rapp, members of the board, this is an annual process and required review of meal prices for the next school year. As you know, LISD participates in the National School Lunch and Breakfast programs administered by the USDA and TDA, and setting minimum prices for student lunch meals and for all adult meals, including breakfast and lunch, is required by USDA and TDA regulations. And these minimum prices are established so that federal reimbursement dollars are not subsidizing full price meals. This is an equity issue, and so the USDA provides school districts with the paid lunch equity tool each year to calculate the minimum price for student lunch meals. In previous years, LISD has been exempted from this requirement. However, that guidance is not available yet for the upcoming 22-23 school year. Separately, there is a different calculator that is used for adult meal prices, which are not exempted from establishing a minimum price. That adult meal price calculator typically doesn't come out until later in the summer months, and it's based on the federal reimbursement rates that were provided at that time. I want to provide a quick update on the waivers that have allowed LISD students to provide free meals for all students at all schools are not anticipated to continue for the 22-23 school year. In fact, they're set to expire at the end of this school year and no later than June 30th of this contract year. It is anticipated by using last year's calculator that LISD student lunch prices will be more than 10 cents lower than the calculated requirement once the calculator is available. Last year, we were about 28 cents lower, and calculating it kind of going backwards, we're still looking at something over 20 cents lower than the equity price would establish. However, the USDA does not require an increase of more than 10 cents in a given year on the student lunch prices. And also, just as a reminder, any potential increase to student meal prices through the paid lunch equity tool would not impact the reduced price meal rate. It is anticipated that a recommendation will be presented next week at the regular Board of Trustees meeting, utilizing the required amounts, the minimum amounts set by the federal requirements. And so we would include the 10-cent cap at the student lunch meal rate, not anticipating a breakfast increase for students, and setting I believe it's a 10-cent increase on the adult meal prices based on, and we would also include language like we did last year that would include the potential for increasing the adult meals as required once that information is made available to us. And with that, I can take any questions about this topic if you have any via in-person or email.
Anything hot? Okay, thank you. Thank you, Craig. Or are you staying up here, Craig, or no?
We got one more.
Okay, come on.
This is also an annual process and a review, required review when a district utilizes a food service management contract. Each year we are expected to either renew that contract or to present a new bid. As you're aware, LISD has contracted with our current with a food service management company for over 20 years. However, TDA is moving all food service management contracts to what is known as a fixed meal rate contract. And TDA is requiring LISD to go back out to bid for our contract and move that to a fixed meal rate contract. Even though our current agreement expires at the end of June 2022 and originally had some renewals available on it, however, we are being required to rebid. Through that process, TDA also requires that LISD use the TDA provided template as the request for proposal document. And they only allow for minor changes to the document. It's primarily a fill in your programs and your information and present that out to those vendors that are on the TDA list. And there's a short list of approved vendors. The RFP document that we developed and had approved approved by TDA was sent to all the vendors on the TDA approved list. Currently, an evaluation committee is reviewing proposals and finalizing that particular process. After that, TDA does require that all proposal and contract documents be submitted back to TDA for approval before executing the contract. And they've been very clear through this particular process that they expect us to provide that back to them for their approval before we bring it back to the Board of Trustees for consideration. So with that, once approved by TDA, the agreement would be brought to the LISD Board of Trustees for consideration to award. However, it is anticipated that we won't have that for next week's meeting, and so we do anticipate that we would most likely bring that to the regular board meeting in May of this year.
Great, thank you.
That's just a quick update.
Any
on
questions? All right, thanks, guys. Really appreciate it. Mr. Colbeck, you're back. Ms. Bay, you're on deck. Then Ms. Hassett. Ms. Bay, no, Mr. Colbeck, Ms. Bay's on deck. Then you're up.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Miller. Technology usage update. This is our spring report. We came to the board in the fall and provided insights into technology uses. This is going to be a little bit more consolidated version. Just a couple things I want to touch on before we get into the data. Just to reset where we're at. In grades pre-K through 3, iPads are issued to students. They stay in the classroom. As you recall, when we did the Operation Connectivity, we bought enough iPads to issue to every student. That's still in place. In grades 4 through 12, if parents opt into the 1-to-X program, they have a device. Current or opt-in percentages for 21 are about 94%. So some ongoing benefits. Obviously, learning continuity is a big piece. We especially saw that again in January and February as our COVID numbers were very high. You know, when you have technology or more technology, staff tends to incorporate it more. So that I think has been a good thing. Obviously, we learned a lot around technology usage in our response to COVID. And we do have, if you recall from the fall presentation, we have a lot of digital resources. We have over 100 apps in the L-Hub. And then we're also having a lot more conversation right now around assessment readiness. So if you look at what's coming from TEA next year, assessments are going to be done online. We obviously do a lot of that already, and we've been doing some testing. So that's where we're spending a lot of conversations. And then also we know that at the board level, y'all have been talking about unfunded mandates. So we thought we'd try to work in a little bit of background on this and how that kind of fits into unfunded mandates requiring technology. That said, we'll get into the unfunded mandates in a second. Having the technology that we've had has really allowed us to respond to some of the things that have come up. So in the area of instructional material adoption, really almost any adoption, there is a lot of digital material. It trends to be digital. So it almost puts a district in a spot where if you're going to take advantage of all the capabilities of that resource, you have to have the access. And then in the area of online assessment, as I said, in 2023, that's going to be for all test takers in grades 3 through 12. And in that case, you really need the devices as well as the infrastructure to do it, to support it. And then obviously that puts a lot of burden on the folks in the assessment department and the technology department, making sure that we're ready for it. And it's like Murphy's Law. You could have stuff ready one day and a new version comes out and a version doesn't work, and you have to work through that and troubleshoot it. So it's a big undertaking. And then also looking at the required reading inventories in K2. You have to have access to that. And then Telpos is online. It has been for a while. And then not only with that, you really need headsets where you have to speak back into it. So, and I think the other part too, when you're looking at the assessment piece, especially looking at the ELA, we've had some really good conversations around that the last couple weeks. When you look at keyboarding skills and knowing that a third grader is going to have to sit down and actually word process a response, that you can't just flip a switch and be like, okay, third graders can keyboard. So you have to scaffold that and make sure that's integrated as you're leading up to it. And then in the area of cybersecurity training, it was a state mandate. Certainly something that districts I think should do. Thankfully, we were doing some of that before it was mandated, but the mandate came out there with no financial support. And then special education video recording. Every time we continue to get requests for that gear, obviously that adds to the amount of storage demand and the retention period's longer. So it puts stress on that system. So those are some examples of unfunded mandates regarding technology.
Real quick, before
Yeah.
he leaves the unfunded mandates, what we will do when we update the budget presentation in May is we will graphically display the dollar amount with those unfunded mandates, and we probably will call out the technology all by itself, because that is a large unfunded mandate from the state as they continue to bring their systems into an online environment.
So on the Splunk data we'll get into next, this is looking at grades 4 through 12. I just want to point out a couple things. One, the data is for weekdays, so the area where we're looking at percentage of devices on campus, that calculates it by the weekday. On the percentage of educational versus non-educational sites, I just want to point out we can't categorize everything, and then also we do block, I think there's a misnomer, well, kids are on Netflix or on Hulu. We block those services. So that's not included in some of the media content. There are some services that are available after school, for example, like Disney Plus or something that's age appropriate that can be accessed outside of school. And then when we look at our daily average, that bandwidth is per student, so it's average per student. It's not necessarily the size of the campus. I do want to point out this legend too, which should look familiar. You've seen this a few times. We did add a new metric to this around the number of a percentage of students with broadband. That comes off of Skyward. So that's a great number, but you need to know what percentage of people filled out Skyward. So what we added to this was the number of, or the percentage of our enrollment that filled out the Skyward forms, and then what percentage of that said they have internet bandwidth. So what you see here for our district cohort, you'll see the, let me bring this in myself, that 95.21% responded to the Skyward forms. Of that, 96% said they have internet access at home. Where our district cohort is high in the opt-in percentage. And then I want to point out too, we were talking about this earlier, the devices on campus daily, we're in that mid-90s. And when we first started tracking that, we were for a district average, in the upper 70s, low 80s. So it's, I think, when you create a culture of using the technology every day, some of the technology that we've adopted over the years, like Canvas and how teachers have incorporated it, it creates this kind of expectation we're going to use the technology every day, and I think that's what's driving it. As far as the average bandwidth per user, that low hundreds, 100 teens, that's pretty consistent to what we've seen in the past. And then I want to point out the lower graph shows bandwidth access at home and at school. So this idea of are the devices being used at home and at school? Yes, it's still trending that they're being used heavily across the board. We do break this down into our cohort groups. I want to point out a little difference there, and this should be familiar to the board. At the high school level, their educational usage is in that 60 range percent, whereas when I switch over to middle school, it's a bit of a misnomer. We've had conversations around this where as students come up out of elementary school, there's a gradual release, right? They're coming off of having the elementary app store where they don't have access to Apple's app store. Some students may not have cell phones for personal use, so that's part of why we're thinking some of the media content is higher at the middle school level. Again, opt-in percentage is high. Devices on campus are high. And then at the elementary, here's where we have the most restricted group of students. So your educational content is very high because we're only allowing access to apps in the App Store. It's a much more restricted filtering group. But again, the numbers are high with opt-in as well as devices on campus. Just want to point out too, this is WebEx data from the start of school to January 9th. Even though we're not doing virtual, I just want to point out that it is being used quite heavily. Still, there's over 31,000 meetings that staff have hosted. And I think too, just the concept of using web conferencing to handle ARD meetings, and just we had a call last week with a campus that's bringing in, I think it was Hebron actually, where they were having parent information meetings, and since they started introducing using web conferencing, the participation of parents consuming the information's up. So I think that's telling, of which 1,900 of those have been recorded, so people can access the content later. Our spaces are still active, over 1.4 million messages in there. there were questions on the board regarding where are we at with the IFE. We changed the fee. I think, Andrew, you might have asked that, so I thought I'd put a slide in here to give you an update of where we are. So when you look at this, I just put in the revenue and the expenses as we've trend each year. And I think with COVID, there's such an anomaly. You could have had kids, if they were virtual, potentially we might have given them an iPad in the fall of 2019, and we didn't see them till this year. So I think our repair numbers are up this year as well. As I shared before, as our Apple Care comes off, we're needing to take that burden on for the repair. That said, as we are looking at this year, when you see fiscal year 2022, that was in January. And you'll look at that and say, why do we only collect $125,000? It's because most of our fee collection is in July, August, when we open up back-to-school forms. So that's not uncommon from other years. But we're definitely, you'll see in fiscal year 21, we spent more than we brought in. We're going to do the same this coming year and for the next year as the devices age out. That said, as we look at what our replacement costs are, plus what we did with the fourth grade, and that'll free up some iPads that we collect from the seniors to allow us to manage the program, we recommend keeping the fee the same as what we had this year. We don't want to keep changing it each year. That was part of the goals. And I think if the expenses are higher than what we anticipate, we can adjust, I think, the following year, but there's $2.7 million in there as of January. So what's next? I'm actually going to, Mr. Miller, you love this. I'm going to bring in two other items on the agenda. So one of the other items on the agenda is year 5 device-specific replacements. So Ms. Jacobson's working with her team as well as procurement and contracts, and basically they're trying to prepare the devices that are needed for programs where we know we have a specific standard. So what that's going to do is basically bring in two recommendations to the board. We're anticipating to bring one in May where we have standards, where the team has went in, looked at are they using these devices each day, talked to the teachers or people that run those programs and make sure that's what they need, it's meeting their needs. So we have a list of hardware that's getting bid out. We're planning on bringing that in May. The future one is much more involved. There's got to be more conversation around what the needs are. Obviously, we're going off of some old standards with having devices in math and science, GT, and it kind of comes down to a simple question. If a student has an iPad, what are they not able to do? And that's what we're leading with. We want to try to maximize that investment to the best that we can, but still meet the needs of the faculty and the students, but that takes time and conversation. So we're going to have to work through that as well as finish up the shared pilot to see what we do with our shared MacBook carts. So we're working with, as I said, procurements and contract. We're planning on hopefully having all the pricing back so we can bring something back to you for that first recommendation in May. On the Google side, and I believe Dr. Rapp put this in the update to the board, this is a changing space for us. So LISD has been a Google Workspace for Education customer, or G Suite for Education. They've changed the name a little bit since 2011. And when that was rolled out, there were no storage limits for anybody in K-12 or higher ed. So they're changing that. And for a couple of reasons, we've had calls with Google, and some of the reasons are around just, abuse as far as without having the limit, and they can't keep offering it at that, for no cost. So it's not that they're charging, it's that they're setting a limit. So I want to make sure I'm clear with that. What that's going to be starting July is they're going to basically set a limit for EDU customers that would limit out at 100 terabyte. For large institutions that have over 20,000 users, which we do, that gets prorated based upon your your number of active accounts. So we're estimating their limit for us will be right around 225 terabyte. Our current, or when I was drafting this changes obviously daily. As I was drafting this, we were at 368 terabyte. So we obviously got to take some efforts to clean up what we have. One of the challenges with this is the current tools that are in Google's management platform are very limited. You can't set quota limits across the domain. And you can see storage, but almost on a per user level. But when you're dealing with 60,000 people, we need some better management tools. So we're working with procurement and contracts to look at a couple of different things. One would be tools that allow us to have visibility and set quotas and manage the domain. And then obviously storage, the potential to have to buy some additional storage. I think that's a real potential, but looking at options for that. And I think the other part of the tools that I'm talking about, you have to, if you're going to set up quotas, you have to give people some lead time, and you got to communicate what their limit is. And I think from our perspective, we don't want to be, paying for storage for people's personal pictures or this or, things that are not clearly related to school. So we have some work to do organizationally to get this right. But we're going to need some tools to be able to communicate that, manage it, have visibility into it to apply it. But our hope is that we could bring a future topic to the board in either May or June. Obviously, there's no board meeting in July, so June, I think, would be obviously the latest, where we have a little bit better insight. We are anticipating some tools to be released by Google, but they're not out yet, and we're not sure what they're going to be. So between the, investigation in the procurement process, we're going to be able to see what's in that space and what's going to meet our needs the best. So upcoming priorities and initiatives for the spring, we're going to finalize our draft technology plan. We have additional meetings with the TAC. As I mentioned, the 5-year program-specific replacement plan, working through those program standards and address the Google storage. I know there's been an interest in kind of what our position is around cybersecurity, so Mr. Langford and I are planning on putting together a couple different presentations for y'all in closed session to talk about what we're doing around cybersecurity, so you have some idea of how we're trying to, protect the district. And then as we look beyond, the spring, we are getting in the process of planning our device evaluation. That is tentatively scheduled for the last week in May and the first week in June, where we're going to be bringing in Apple, Google, Microsoft. We're putting together our teacher teams currently, setting up those activities. We are going to need to look at our TAC membership after our last meeting. And, even as board members, you might have different people you want to put on there, but our plan is to revisit that. I already mentioned the assessment piece, but we're going to have to continue to plan for that. And it's not, it's all the pieces that you need for that to be successful. Keyboards, headsets, the devices, all of it. SIS evaluation I put on there. We're doing the student service audit, so I am anticipating some level of recommendation coming out of that potentially might even be like a timeline on where we could potentially take that project over a period of time, because it would be very likely a 18, 24-month process. And I would say the same is true with Munis. We use Munis for our finance and HR system. That needs to be evaluated as well. I already mentioned during the 2017 bond program, our data center hardware, the support licensing for that is going to have to be bid out this coming year. And then, consider technology, budget, and sustainability. That's something that's been brought up a couple times. We need to find some opportunities to strategize how to do that. And then I think, as Dr. Rapp and I spoke, there's some opportunity to talk about the content that technology brings to the board and how can we potentially, do this in smaller chunks. Because sometimes, especially the fall one, there's a lot of information in there when you get into all the opt-in numbers. Maybe 1 month you look at opt-in, maybe one you look at digital resource. This is probably a good time to look at an IFE update. So anyway, we want to strategize on how to get you what you need, but do it in a very efficient way. And that's it.
Great. Thank you, Brian. And appreciate you recommending the board maybe looking at your TAC based on your last meeting. And I know I'm going to spend some time with Brian and kind of talk about some different ideas and strategies. Anybody that has stuff, send them in to Brian. We are including in the 5-year strategic planning committee, it's Buddy and Christy and I, we're looking at vendors now with Craig's team. Lori is on that, and we don't have a plan. We have a plan to develop a plan, and Brian's been invited into that discussion, and Brim to some degree will also be a part of that, so we can be thinking about all the things together. So anybody else? Go ahead.
So just a clarification, so the TAC committee, you're reestablishing that. So will you be meeting with them at all before your recommendation of future technology?
Yes. Yep, we're going to be meeting with them here in April.
Okay.
And then we may need to meet with them more than once this year. But I think as far as establishing membership, I want to get through this year. And then the goal when we initially started that, we were trying to set up almost like a term where it's like you know, a third of it would roll off, so you're not always asking the same people to serve on committees, and you get some fresh viewpoints, but also you have people that have some prior background on the discussions. So I think that's where we want to revisit it and try to, I guess, bring that idea, that concept back of trying to have terms on it.
So the membership you have has been some members that have been on there prior?
Since
So-
we started it in
Okay, great. So they can
2019.
give some true assessments of what their observations are?
Yep.
Okay, because I would love to know what they say.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brian, very much to you and your team. Appreciate it.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Thank you, Board. Ms. Bay, are you going to come up or? Oh, okay. Dr. Miller will join you, so we can have a couple. We're going to have a PhD in E and a JD. I don't know, something like that. What do you got?
Okay, I'm just going to give an overview. This is on policy that dictates for your district advisory council. So just an overview reminder, this group is made up of staff members, parents, community members, and business partners, and their focus is on academics. So looking at our goals, our objectives, our programs. They are advisory roles, so they give feedback to us on our DIP a lot. I mean, we are getting feedback right now from them for next year. They look at how we support teachers and our professional learning plan. They approve that. We look at budgeting and how we use our Title II funds in alignment with our goals. And then also, how do we report out to the community, like our campus profiles. They give us feedback on all of that.
So in your board book, you got a track changes copy of the proposed changes for board policy BQA. So basically what it does is it matches current district practice with the policy. So you have those changes. There are some noted in there that just come from the education code. There aren't things that we can change. But other things is just to kind of match. For example, we make sure we always have membership from each of our feeder patterns. That's now going to be in board policy. So it's always the same way. Per your BOP, board policy changes come for discussion first, and then they go to consent at the next meeting. So we're happy to take any questions you might have.
Does anybody have anything jumps out? The only thing I would say is, and this might take some interaction with Dr. Rapp, is that like when you say these people are advising you, I think that's what we do. And so when they're advising the superintendent, if the superintendent's then using that as feedback back, it's often an enigma as to who's on the committee and what they're talking about and what is it that you're putting into the plan that they actually came up with. And I think policy notwithstanding, practice needs to be, because this is a statutory requirement, right?
Correct.
That we have such a functional, I mean, maybe we need to move to every board member has a delegate on this. It's that important. Why not, right? We have it on for far less important things, and this is the committee that's actually providing executive advisory for things like the DIP, which becomes CIPs, which kind of how we run our business. So if we could, Dr. Rapp, maybe kind of think through that and talk through that, how that's going to look.
Yeah, I mean, I know that, Ms. Prosnick actually had asked last cycle or something a while back ago about regular updates about what this group was looking at and what they were talking about, and including that more regularly in what now has become my Friday board notes. I do think just in general, a review to you all of committees, and we've talked about this at leadership team, what exists, what does the membership look like, what's statutory, what's not statutory, what has board recommended people on it, what doesn't. So I'd like to gather that information first and give that to you, and then talk about what do regular updates look like from this group and what should the membership be sure it consists of.
And if I could hop in, the education code does specify these folks have to be elected. So they do go through an election process. So 2/3 of it has to be classroom teachers. They're nominated by other classroom teachers and voted on by classroom teachers. So there's a very small area of anyone that could be nominated.
Could we just see the agendas for the next couple of meetings? It might be helpful. I actually served on this way
Yeah.
before I was elected, and so I kind of know what was going, how that operates. But
Yes,
it
and
would
all,
be very beneficial, because even as a new member, I remember back probably close to 10 years ago when I actually joined that group, that I really didn't know what I was coming into. But it was one of those that my no button wasn't working that day. So I said yes, So it would be helpful, just as a general policy, just even having an onboarding for those, especially those that aren't teachers. For the community members, it would have been very helpful had I known at the onset.
yeah, all minutes are posted online. So after each meeting, they're all posted on there so anyone can look at them. And then I actually called each one of them that's on the meeting, because we wanted commitment of what they were getting into and that they were going to be attending. But yes, we can provide that for you.
Great. I'm comfortable that it's clear what we need to get comfortable, and so look forward to you guys doing that. Thank you very much. Ms. Hassett?
Thank you very much, Mr. Miller. This is just an item to notify the board that we have a tracking device now for our audits. We have a spreadsheet that is on Google for all of our board members and administration to see their action items for each of the audits, what the progress is of each of the items. Currently, the spreadsheet has a summary page of all of them, as well as a sheet for each one of them, a little bit more detail of every item in the audit that was suggested and what the administration's response is. So we'll try to make sure this is a little bit more updated. We do need a few timelines filled in, just so that everybody knows when we're supposed to be achieving these by and the status, how they're doing. But we'd like to be able to bring this back to the board at least twice a year so we can all review it. And hopefully the audit committee can touch base with administration every quarter to make sure that the timelines are still accurate.
I appreciate that, Ms. Hassett. We talked about this again this morning at leadership team, and we have more information we need to add to your tracking sheet. The tracking sheet is very user-friendly for us. We have some things we need to update it with, though, and we do like the idea of having some quarterly conversations about where we are, how's it going, do we need to make any revisions to what we thought. That would be great.
One other comment, one of the items in the governance audit was a governance subcommittee that Mrs. Cox and Ms. Sells and I were on. We're going to add an item to consent, which was the governance committee's recommendations, because the governance committee recommended that we go with a framework, an official framework for our governance, whether that be the Florida model, the TEA's Lone Star model, TASB's XG. So the recommendations from the committee will also be on the Monday's consent items. Just a nutshell of what we recommended was we're not going to go with a boxed governance. We think admin is already doing an excellent job on multiple areas. We could just try to improve some of the areas that we're already currently doing well on, as well as just a little nugget that we think all of our classes have our 4 cornerstones. We want to throw up something in the back so that when we're sitting at the dais, we have the cornerstones to remember and think about those, as well as like our, not our mission, but the core values. So our core values and so that the board can always remember what our core values are.
Thank you, Ms. Hassett. And the goal would be, depending on the elections and then, of course, the officer elections, if we can maintain as much stability as possible in some of these committees. They've really gotten some stride and some good plans as to what to complete next. Angie, not sure how to keep you on some of those, but we're going to figure out something. Oh, did you have a question? Go ahead.
First, I'd like to thank the committee. Y'all have done an outstanding job, and Ms. Hassett, I love the spreadsheet, so good job. But I just want to clarify, so the timeline means the timeline of the audit to be done And so can you just clarify timeline and status?
Timeline of each of the recommendations. So every recommendation that was in each of the audit is in a separate line item on the spreadsheet. Whenever the administration says that they think they can achieve that particular item from the audit is the timeline. So like we haven't done our board self-evaluation. Goal number 1, governance audit, we don't have a timeline for it. Okay. So we need to determine if what our timeline is. We'll put the timeline in, and then we'll put what the status is.
Ms. Cox, these are from the completed audits and
Okay,
their
that we've already
recommendations.
done.
These do
Completed.
not include the audits that are
Coming.
currently, if I'm understanding your question.
Yes.
All the way
That's
from
what I
over
was
there.
like-
So, no, we currently, of course, have audits that are ongoing right now that will be coming to the board, but this is what's been completed.
So I don't know, I mean, I don't want to create more work.
You love
But-
creating work as you're leaving.
Right, but it would be nice, I think, for the board to see just another row that says implementation to show maybe some of the, to do this, just some notes so that when then you look at it, okay, here's what it was.
So on each one of the, because this is the
That you're going
overall
to
sheet.
do.
So we can put that, there is a notes section
Okay.
available.
Yeah.
I have nothing in them right now. But that will be a good use of the notes section of what we did to implement.
Just the small implementation of what it was, that way when you're looking at it as an overall, okay, these are the audits that we did, and this is what the outcomes were, and it was implemented in timeline.
One more thing for us to do now.
I know,
that you're
sorry.
It's a good, I think it's a good idea, and it's good for transparency, so I'm sure Christie will find a way to do that. All right, with that said, the next item on the agenda is to consider a Level 3 employee grievance appeal. The board will move into closed session at this time for consultation with board counsel pursuant to Texas Government Code, Section 551.071, and will then remain in closed session under Sections 551.074 and 551.0821 for the hearing as the grievance includes a complaint against a district employee. The time now is 8:27 p.m. We're going to take a short break for about 3 minutes, and then the parties, 5 minutes, and then the parties will meet in the boardroom. Okay, we're back into open session at 9:52 p.m. Do I have a motion on items discussed in executive session?
I do, Mr. Miller.
Mrs. Cox.
I move that the board deny the appeal and uphold the Level 2 decision.
Motion by Mrs. Cox. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion by Ms. Lasan. Any discussion? All in favor, raise your hand by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? No. If there's no further business, this meeting is adjourned at 9:52 p.m.